Sai Ram, this is an online test. Let's start today's study circle with 3 ohms. Oh, oh, oh. Dear Swami, we are so grateful to be able to meet here together in your presence today. While we are here together studying your word in your Bhagavata Vahini, we ask that you open our ears and hearts to whatever it is you want us to learn. Please speak through each one of us and help us progress in our spiritual journey. Jai Sai Ram. Sai Ram, everyone. Thank you all for joining today. It was a nice 2 minute of silence actually right before, so that was really, I don't know, it was really peaceful. So with that, I'll just go through a little, just if you can mute your cell phones, if you have not already done so. It'll help us not be distracted during the study circle. And let's be cognizant of the time when we are asking questions or sharing our thoughts. All right, just a little review. We've had last week, we had two sessions back to back, and we focused on the role of Maya. And we move. So, with the role of Maya, we did talk about the waking, dream, and deep sleep state last week, followed by how Maya is basically the power of Brahman. And awareness of our true self will help us to separate ourselves from the tough times in life. And most of these the superimposition of Maya is what we also talked about. And then we read Swami's quote on where he said, we are basically like the puppets on the screen. And that is, we discussed on how we are controlled by our senses. And then we moved along into controlling our mind, because that's what the renunciation was about. And then we talked about how we can restrain our mind, what is important if we want to be on the path of devotion, on restraining our mind and how we can purify. And then we moved on to what activities the mind has, and how mind can focus on the self. Interestingly, we ended with a little management of mind checklist, and we talked about setting a clear goal, creating a process, following the schedule, and performing and having performance indicators for ourselves, which I think is a great segue into another study circle at some time, regarding how we can actually set clear goals for ourselves and recalibrate the process for personal growth. So, with that, if anyone has anything to add, this would be a great time. Okay, then we can move on. All right, just we are on Bhagavad Vahini chapter 6 on Vidura's renunciation, and we are actually talking or reviewing or discussing the discourse on renunciation that Swami has. So, with that, we'll talk today about the power of mind and the role of the intellect as far as renunciation goes. So, is Om here? Om, can you please read for us?
Power of the mind and role of the intellect. Today, men are subjecting themselves to all kinds of difficulties and problems because they are giving a free rein to the mind. This is where the vital role of buddhi, intellect, comes in. The intellect enhances the power of man. It is the greatness of the intellect that distinguishes man. The intellect has the potency to comprehend the entire cosmos. Consider the power of the mind. One goes round the world, sees many cities, looks at mountains and rivers, and meets in innumerable persons and has varied experiences. All this infinite variety of objects, persons, scenes, and experiences are imprinted in the subtle form in the mind. How is it that such a small mind can contain all this vast panorama and countless objects and impressions? Is there room in the mind for containing a high mountain? You have to understand the boundless capacity of the mind. The cosmos is based on the mind. The individual through his body is part of the cosmos. Think for a moment how pitifully small is this body in relation to this vast universe. Recognition of one's invincibility, funny size should lead to humility. At the time there is at the same time there is infinite potentiality in man. That is why Vedanta declares that the divine is subtle than the subtlest atom and vaster than the vastest object in creation. You may have seen the huge banyan tree in the Theosophical Society at Adyar, Madras, now called Chennai. It is a very huge tree, but its seed is an extremely small one. That small seed has the potential to grow into a vast, extensive tree. Likewise, the human mind is exceedingly small, but it can comprehend this vast universe. This, the mind appears as an insignificant speck in the universe, but the universe is immanent in the minuscule mind. It would appear as if the universe and the mind were telling each other, I am that and this is me.
Yeah. So I think this is a really interesting uh, piece of that discourse. But I thought the first thing we should talk about is what is the difference between the mind and intellect? What is mind and what is intellect? And, how are we leading our thoughts and actions, through our mind or intellect? And can the intellect be trained? Like we have to train the mind. Can we train the intellect? Is there such a thing?
As I understand, it's the same. When the same thing is working as a mind, it's a mind. When it's working as intellect, it's an intellect. There's no difference between the two, the mind and the intellect.
Yeah, the mind is actually something, the processor and the memory or the intellect. Okay. And so if you take a computer as an example, so the circuits are, something like mind. There are the switches, continuously changing in switches, but that is the mind. It can keep on changing. It cannot interpret. And that is where you need the processor, which is behind it, and then the memory, which is behind it. Those are part of the intellect.
The mind, intellect, and the third one you said what?
The processor, the mind, the intellect consists of the memory as
Memory,
well as the processor.
all three, but basically it's the same. Even somewhere I think I read Baba said it's same thing. It's like three caps you're wearing. Sometimes it's for the mind, intellect, or the memory. So they're not three items in the somewhere. No, that's what Swami said.
Intellect is subtly different from the mind, and that is what it is. Yeah.
Saira, I think mind is the feeler of emotions. We see the world, objects, self through the mind. And the intellect is the thinking muscle, like it discriminates what is right, what is wrong, those kind of things. You can think of mind as a warehouse storing everything. Mind gets all the information through our senses, right? It doesn't go out and look for anything, but all the information data is going to the mind stored. But the intellect is the one which is telling you what to do and think about things, making the decisions and all that. So there is a difference. Though they are the part of the same subtle body, and mind and intellect are intertwined, but intellect is subtler than the mind.
So when we see a beautiful flower, mind is the one that is what is calling it beautiful.
The intellect. The
Yeah.
mind is just telling it's a flower. I think the qualifier is based on the intellect. That is based on your prior knowledge, maybe the memory, and maybe the information that it has gathered through so many sources. So it stores all that, and using that, the intellect judges and tells that it's beautiful. That beautiful, it's a flower is probably given by the mind, but that beautiful comes from the intellect, based on the intellect.
Yeah. Also, the mind, like just like the eye, and we all hear. The eye can only see, but it sees, but it does not know what it sees. So the mind is needed to interpret what it is seeing. But then the mind by itself, it kind of recognizes the form and shape and all that, but it goes to the intellect. This form and this shape, and I have seen it before. What does it mean? That's why sometimes things which if we have never seen before, we don't know what to call it. So that comes from, repeated, learning process. Somebody teaches you have read it, you have seen it before. Then all that information is kind of, in the intellect, in the mind, and the mind actually takes it then says, okay, this one I match with what is there, and then, kind of interprets it.
Okay,
So-
so no.
So it is the intellect that tells the mind, hey, this is what it is. You have seen this, the mind asks the intellect, right, what is this?
No, but we are not seen. So, okay. So now, of course, the internet is making the world small, right? But back in the 80s, when there was no way to, imagine because we did not know what it is, something like when I'll give you an example of myself. So when we came to, I was 12 or 13, 12 maybe, when I first visited Paris. The Eiffel Tower, when you look at it, I've never seen it before, right? We never really heard of it, except knowing that it is seven wonders of the world or whatever it is. But it felt like we were seeing something magnanimous, right? That feeling, how would my intellect know? It has not seen it before.
But it doesn't say it is Eiffel Tower. It just says there's something magnanimous. So that you have, your mind has already thought about all that. Something magnanimous must be huge. It is beyond, it's like, when we say the number is, there was, a good joke about that. There was somebody who can count only up to 10. So up to 10, he can say 1, 2, 3, up to that. Anything over that, he will say it is huge because he does not know what number after 10 is. And so, so the mind knows that it is beyond this thing, so it must be huge.
Sairam, I just read Swami's quote, going into the details of what happens when we see how the mind goes. He talks about so many bridges that are there. It all happens in fractions of second, but he goes into the, maybe I can share that quote, I mean, share that discourse. So I don't remember exactly what but I do remember he goes into the depth of what happens when we see something, how the mind, how it reaches the mind, how it goes, all that he has given in great details. Maybe after this one I can share that.
Yeah. So, okay. So if there is the difference between the mind and intellect, so on a daily basis, are we using our intellect?
I have just one line to say because I read the second line. So to me, mind is thoughts and intellect is actions and interpretation. For example, we are walking on road in dark. Someone is following us. That is the thought. Is someone following us? Then the action is the person good or bad? It's like that. So I think that intellect is just actions and interpretation of thoughts that mind thinks. So it is already written in the second line. Yeah.
Sid, I'd like to bring what Jean Klein had said on the flower, because she said flower. It said, when you see a beautiful rose, he just saw it. And he explained what happened. He said the essence of the flower connects to essence of your own self, the truth rather. Not by essence, he means the truth. The essence of that flower connected to essence of your essence. And that from that point or that state is what you're looking at the flower and how beautiful it is and the smell of it and so on. That is where you are connecting to that flower. But actually, he talked at a much higher level that you can call it Atma or essence, whatever, of that flower connected to yours. And from that level, you are looking at the flower and really appreciating it. So, which we don't never think of it, but perhaps one aspect to think about.
Also, we have to remember when the body was described, this gross body and the subtle and all that, it was divided based on the 5 koshas. In the 5 koshas, it's clearly manomaya, and above that is the vijnanamaya, which is intellect. Manomaya is the mind level, so those are separated for sure. And you have to use the vijnanamaya kosha or that intellect for discernment.
The ego resides in the intellect, the Vijnanamaya kosha, right? That is where it resides.
I see The intellect is operating, combining body, senses, and the ego. Why the ego? The ego is the I, the small I, that we feel I am. Okay. So the one way to look at intellect is like the sun. Let's say the sun is Brahman, consciousness, the higher I. And the moon. The moon doesn't have its own light. It is just reflecting the sunlight. But when we see the moon and we say this is moonlight, we attribute the light as if it belongs to the moon. It is just reflecting only. Same way, the intellect is borrowing the light from the consciousness, which is reflecting in our mind. So intellect is very close, subtler than the mind, and the ego is even subtler than the intellect. So when we say I, when we say, oh, my conscience say this, the conscience part of it is coming from this intellect, which is reflecting the I. Makes sense? So this is why we think I decided, my conscience say, I should do this, I shouldn't say this. All these are coming from the intellect. Okay, so there is a difference between the consciousness, the Brahman, that awareness, the witness, that is separate. But the reflected light, we say reflected consciousness. Right, Asha? So that is the one reflecting in our mind. And the intellect are so close to each other. There are some difference, but not much.
So ego is not same as intellect, is what? The I is the ego part of it, but it's subtler than the intellect. Okay.
So we come back to the Antahkaran. Man, Buddhi, Chit, Ahankar. Man is the most gross one. Man, which is called mind here.
Yeah.
Then comes Buddhi, which is called
Intellect.
intellect here. And third is the Chit, consciousness. And then comes the Ahankar. As we proceed, we become more subtle and subtle and subtle. Ahankar is the deepest one. Is the deepest one and most sukshma, most subtle. Closest to that reflected part, that's what we call I. That's where the I hidden, the deepest one. So man, buddhi, chit, ahankar, they are the four things of the same antahkaran. The superficial one is man, which is called mind here. Then comes the buddhi, which is called intellect, and chit is the consciousness, and then comes the ahankar, the sukshma. So there are four parts of the same thing. And as we go down, it's becoming more and more sukshma.
So I was also going.
Yeah. So everything is reflected. So
So-
there should be no confusion today onwards. Everything we no, let's no.
So-
But whenever we talk about these things, it's always reflected.
Yeah.
The reflection comes in the same mirror we have. That is the reflection comes in that antahkaran. What is formed with those four is called antahkaran. The reflection will come in antahkaran only. If there is no antahkaran, that's what happens when we die. Let's understand the bigger picture. The antahkaran escapes. Sukshma sharir escapes. So there is no reflection. That's why we die. So it's we are trying to correct every dots here. So that is where the reflection comes. The moment that reflection is not there, there is no life. The body moves on.
See, like you see in the mirror, right? The face we talked about. You can think of the reflected face as the reflected consciousness. The original is outside. We cannot see our own face. We can never realize the consciousness itself. But you can see that through the mirror, how it is. Like that same way, the reflected consciousness is in the mind, and we use it. Without that, we cannot be aware of what is going on, comprehend anything. Another way of looking at is maybe the electricity and the bulb. You don't see the electricity, but you see how it expresses itself through various things. So that is one way of understanding it.
The way Shobhaji just mentioned that Anandamaya Kosh, Anandamaya, it is that reflected. That's why it's called Anandamaya, like Anand. He is my son, he is like my son. He is my son, he is like my son. But like my son is never my son. So let's understand. So Anand and Anandamaya, it is like that. It's like that Anand. It's like that consciousness. So that's why there's a little difference between the consciousness and reflected consciousness.
So
Also,
I want to also bring up the question of, why the ego is the most subtle. So I'm just reminded of a story which, Yogananda in his autobiography mentions. So there is, his guru's guru. And in that autobiography, he says he was probably 1,000 years old at that time. And, Babaji. And so there is, someone who has given up everything. He is actually also, very well evolved, but he is going through all that. And then he's coming to Guru and says, Murti, unless you, give me, your moksha, I'm going to jump into this water, near the water. And he said that, remember that story. And so then the Guru says, jump. And then, he says that's the last part. He has done everything else, but that ego is the last one that is not going. That is I am doing it. I want it. That small I, becomes. That's why I want to just
Yeah.
why it is subtle.
I think it confuses people when you say real and unreal, because what we feel right now feels very, very real, right? Like the real world, real living, real. So when we say real, unreal, reflected, I think it sometimes confuses people because you have to really delve deep into it to understand. Another way of thinking about it is permanent and impermanent, right? The only permanent thing is the consciousness. That is the ultimate reality that's always there.
You mean the reflected consciousness?
No, the real consciousness. That is the only permanent thing. Everything else is impermanent. Everything else is impermanent. So if instead of thinking real, unreal, so think of permanent and impermanent. It's the same exact thing. But when you think in terms of permanent and impermanent, it becomes a little bit more clear for us to accept. What is permanent is the only thing is a real consciousness, ever present, unchanging, ever there, right? Then comes the impermanent things. When is this I born? The Shobha is born on June 1973, something like that. It begins there, and that I ends when it dies. It's a beginning and an ending. It's impermanent. Body is impermanent.
That I
mind,
know.
everything. That's all. There's two things: permanent, impermanent. So when you think
No,
like
there
that,
is.
What you are asking is, just because we got this body, we started to call Shobha or Manoj, whatever. So that Sukshma Sharir has gone to a different body. That particular day, that Sthul body came into picture. That's the date of birth. That's so.
So that's the subtle body that is there. Obviously, we are carrying it around, right? Through the eons of things.
yes, but it's not, a part of it is, the part of it is carried like that from Janmas is what we like we understand. But even that small I for this body, that small I that came into this body also has a date of beginning and end, that I'm identifying it with this body, that small I is there and it'll end. And then part of it moves on.
So
Not
that
so
is not of significance when this body came into picture, because Sukshma Sharir moves on. So we are always from Janma to death,
Correct. We
Janma
are
to death.
beyond, right? We
We
are
are
beyond this body.
beyond
right?
this body, and even that the Sukshma Sharir has to end when the Gyan will come. When that small I will die, then the Sukshma Sharir will also die. The Gyan, after Jnana, yes, sir. No, no. After Gyan, when the Sukshma I will die, then only will be this thing will be over.
Ego will go away, is what. Yes. Go ahead.
Sairam, so actually Shubhaji was making a good point that we have to view it as, see what all the Veda and Upanishad are offering us is permanent. Permanent and impermanent is the main distinction they make. In fact, Brahma is called Akshara, Akshara Brahma. And in Bhagavad Gita, there is one chapter called Akshara Brahma Yoga. Akshara means imperishable, that means permanent. So the great distinction Vedas and Upanishad, actually Upanishad make is Aksharam, which is imperishable, indestructible. Then that is I wanted to say that I just wanted to bring into focus. Second thing I wanted to know that where is Chitta, that concept coming from? Because other three are coming from Sankhya Darshana. They are part of the 25 evolutes.
Correct.
Vedanta talks about Antakaran made of 4 components.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Vedanta talks about 4 components:
Correct.
Man, Buddhi, Chetan, Ahankar.
Yes. Yes.
That's one.
Mhm.
And what Sir is mentioning, that perishable and imperishable, permanent and impermanent.
Mm.
Dvavimo Purusho Loke, Kshar cha Akshar Evacha, Kshara Sarvani Bhutani. What's that? Yes. Something. So one is Kshar, which is this stool body. One is Akshar, which is the Suksham body. And I am beyond it. He is saying, I'm
Chetan.
beyond it. I am beyond these two, Kshar and Akshar. I am beyond it. That's what Krishna is telling Arjuna.
Yes.
So the Kshar is the स्थूल जगत, Akshar जो चलता रहता है, आगे चलता रहता है,
That's
which
the
keeps on
subtle
going.
one.
Yeah,
That's the
second,
subtle.
the sectoral one. And I am beyond it. The third one, I am beyond it. That is the supreme consciousness.
That is in Bhagavad Gita, not in Vedanta. Yeah, because in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna put himself above, beyond Brahman also.
No.
Yeah.
Mm,
Sometimes he indicates towards him also. Sometimes he talks about Supreme Brahman.
Supreme
also.
Brahman,
At
yes,
different
but-
context, in different context, different chapters, he gives different references. Sometimes he talks about him when he shows his Virat Sharir. Sometimes he talks about Brahman. There's
Yeah.
nothing beyond Brahman he has mentioned
Yeah.
actually.
Anyway, this discussion is not about Bhagavad Gita, so that's okay. I just so the question coming back is, what can the intellect be trained? Then we talked about, what leads our thoughts and actions, right? And we said mostly mind with the use of intellect, right? Can intellect be trained then?
I think we should be continuously training the intellect to see the impermanence in all these things, see the play of Maya. That's how I see, because the intellect is interpreting based on our past experiences. It's interpreting and saying that it's a beautiful flower. It's something. So it's qualifying what the senses are giving, or what the mind is feeding it. So if we have to train the intellect to see the impermanence in all this, because everything is going to pass. Nothing is going to be permanent. See, the whole thing is Maya. So we continuously have to train and keep telling the intellect that this is all not the truth, not the supreme one, not the it's all reflected, or it's all Maya. So if we keep telling it repeatedly, I think that's when we will go beyond it. And then the whole purpose of this is to not get affected by whatever is happening in this life.
See, intellect is closest to Atma, consciousness. Intellect. So when something comes to the mind and we refer it to the intellect, check it out, is it right or wrong? Should I do it? So you're going one step above and checking with the intellect, which is the closest to the Atma. So that's all we have in our control is our intellect. That's all.
Saram, I just happened to read some small article. It's a 4 lines, 4 sentences, but I'm trying to recollect exactly. I might not put it well formed, but I'll try to explain it. So what we are talking is Mano, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankar, and somebody explained. Mano is kind of your experiences and memories. And Buddhi is kind of a referee. It's sitting there, it's a referee. So he has given an example. So somebody goes and then he sees, he's walking in the market and seeing different things here and there. So that's all experience, and his visual and all the senses are capturing. And then at some point, he thinks that there is a beautiful item and he wants to get it. There are two options: you buy it or steal it, right? Then referee comes, intellect comes into the picture. Hey, you're thinking two. One is buying and second is stealing. Stealing is bad, don't do it. But to buy, he doesn't have the money. So then later, referee sits there watching it, and finally, referee gives up. Okay. And then he decides, okay, steal it, finally. Then Chitta comes into the picture. This is what I read. I might not be framing well, but Chitta comes then. Buddhi is for steal it. Chitta comes, and then it says, yes, fine. It's all assumed. Everything is decided. Chitta takes it. Okay, go steal it, steal it, steal it, steal it. And then the final one comes, ahankara. That's I am. The final layer of all our senses is coming into the picture. It instructs ahankara, do it. Then this person thinks, I'm doing it now. It's a very complex phenomenon he explained in 4 lines. So finally, ahankara comes into the picture where Chitta says to ahankara, I'm fine, go and steal it. And then ahankara takes action. That the person or I is taking the action there. That's how it's framed.
Okay. So I'm confused now.
Okay.
So, okay, so,
So-
so I was thinking that so buddhi is the one that we have to train to make ahankara subtle, go away, slowly diminish and, dissolve. That is what my thought was. And that man buddhi, chitta is consciousness that is, always is pure. That was my question. Is it always pure? Even if it is reflection? No. So then I'm thinking then buddhi and chitta are the same then, right? How are they different then?
And this is kind of very similar. Actually, you are right. There are 3, 4 things very similar. What Jay has explained in a different way, that's an example. The actions lead to habits, habits leads to character. That is the sequence. That's sequence of going inside. So the character thing, that is that chitta kind of thing. That's where we are reaching. It's not exactly equivalent. I'm just trying to correlate with it. So what he was mentioning is a similar thing. Going deeper, that becomes a constant character of the personality.
Yeah, go ahead, Timothy.
So actually, I would not go by the English words, as Dr. Saab is saying, mind and intellect. It's very confusing because in English, mind and actually the terms is manas and buddhi. Manas is the sentience, that means the emotional part of it, and buddhi is the rational part of it, analytical part of it. As Jay sir was saying, you can see it as the referee. It will apply rules and all that. So it is manas and buddhi is the difference. Next thing, what is chitta? Now I think I got clarity. See, because in Sankhya Darsana, consciousness is Purusha only. Prakriti Purusha. Purusha is consciousness. There is no need in Sankhya for chitta. But Vedanta will not talk about Purusha because it is monism, no Advaita. So that's why they bring in chitta to account for the consciousness part of it.
So I will.
Yeah, go ahead.
To simplify things, always simply, because when you delve into all these details, in the real life, it's very irrelevant, not important. What is important to know is these are all like academic ways of understanding. We don't need all that to lead a life or reach that consciousness, right? Or realize Brahman. And there's different philosophies, like Sankhya is one of there's many that
Correct.
came later too. Everybody argued their own ways. Like, Advaita, then Visishta Advaita. So many.
Yeah.
Let's not delve into all that. It's
Yeah.
all good for academic discussions. And even Vivekananda says, It's not important. He said these are all but little differences
Right.
in dogmas and concepts or whatever
Mhm.
books. So what is important to know, what is your question is, can we train the intellect? Yes, we can, and we have to. You have to,
So-
because when you're born with a little, maybe a little bit, but not much as a child. You are developing it, as time goes, with reading, with all these books and knowledge that you get from the
That
either
is
your
the
gurus
mind,
or,
right?
no, mind is always like only like at a superficial level.
Yeah.
It is your mind is always active even as a kid. Is looking at mom, dad, this, that, everywhere it's active.
Yeah.
Mind is
at
only
birth.
experience.
Yeah.
It's
It's only,
very
yeah. But
it's-
you have to train your intellect.
Yeah.
it's very
We can-
difficult to distinguish between mind, intellect, and all that. It happens in when you see immediately the intellect, everything works in tandem and says it's a beautiful flower. You cannot say, oh, now mind is telling this it's a flower, then intellect is interpreting all those things. You cannot say it's all happening instantly. So all we have to do is to control and tell the whole complex that it's Maya. So that I think you cannot single out and say, I want to teach my intellect or I have to teach my mind. You
Yeah.
cannot do all that.
Sit,
No, in,
thank God we don't have to do all that. It all happens automatically somehow. I don't know. You see, and the intellect tells you, and things happen. Have you ever thought, mind did this? Let me check with the intellect. What is the? We don't do that. Just take a action like that. So thank God it's like that, or we won't work, I think.
Yeah, see, in mind, it says like mind is always confused and intellect has clear thoughts. Mind has a lot of thoughts and feelings. So there is one way, also like Shobha mentioned that mind and the intellect has two, gross body and the subtle, both ways. Gross body, we are looking around and deciding all these, our laukika things in life. And the subtle one is the one you take towards spirituality, God, or higher purpose. And also in the deep sleep, that they are all quiet, but the intellect is there with ego. That's what I read. But the how to train the intellect is they say like you can constantly reflect and think and have the self-inquiry, like where I am going, what is this true purpose. Like that way, you can keep turning in your mind. The intellect can be trained. And for example, like reading Bhagavad Gita or higher, scriptures, to mind is always focusing on the worldly things, but the intellect can navigate you, take you towards the inner path. That's what I understand.
So, to become a doctor and then a specialist, a cardiologist. After becoming a cardiologist, it's very easy to get an EKG done, interpret an EKG, and then do the echocardiogram, then angiography. But we have to go through anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and all pathology. All those 6 years we spent in MBBS are important. Let's not say they are not important. They are not relevant. Let's not say that. They are all relevant to become to this qualified state. When you look retrospectively, you might find, yeah, I am at this stage now. I don't need all that. I've learned that. So to reach to that stage, you need those qualifications. You need to learn it. You need to understand it. It's not irrelevant. Let's not call these all study material not irrelevant. They are very relevant to understand from the beginning. Then you will understand the concept, what Baba is saying. When sometimes he uses manas, sometimes he uses the word buddhi, sometimes he uses the word intellect. How will you understand if you have not read all that from the basic knowledge? So number one. Number two, I would request always to also read that Hindi word or Sanskrit word with it. That gives the actual meaning. Intellect and those things are okay, but they never reflect the actual conceptual meaning what Baba is trying to say. It's very important.
May I make a request?
because we're always, this is a center that we're open, right? So anybody can walk in here that has never had any discussion. I appreciate everybody's knowledge. But sometimes I feel we're going this way, this way, this way. It's because there's, as Shobha says, it is relevant and there's all these academics, but then it gets very confusing because there is Swami's version, and then I feel like we kind of veer off. So pardon me for saying that. It gets a little bit confusing when there's so many different thoughts. It's kind of hard to follow for me, but I am not at that level. I am at a very basic level compared to everybody here. So the request is just, can we just like
Keep
stay
it
on
simple.
one path? Because otherwise it gets
We
very
are.
confusing.
We are on the same path, but I agree with the number of terms that can get confusing. The only reason why we want to have this kind of discussion is exactly, my thought is exactly like Manojji's, where I'm thinking, if we don't get it, how do you sometimes, sometimes the mind is like, what's the point of doing everything? So
So Sabita, let me ask you. So you think all this discussion about whatever the Vedantic explanation or things are confusing, but can you just simply say what is mind, what is intellect, according to you? I mean, I'm asking, simplify it. Can you do that? Just generally, I'm asking. Yeah.
No, I can't. No, I can't. But then I think he was the first person that actually like explained it. So, and then Shobha kind of
Anybody, I
simplified
understand
it,
what
right?
you are saying.
Yeah, because
So,
it's kind of going too many directions.
Right. So
We need to
why
bring
don't
it
we, in a
back.
common sense way, why don't we say what is mind, what is intellect? Why don't we first see if there is any difference between the two? And how do we understand in everyday life, or how do we apply it? How do we use it, mind and intellect? That's what I'm asking. And I'm asking Sabita.
No, I get that. No, so through all this, as Sabita said, it is confusing and I understand. But I think that here we are from kindergarten to 12th grade,
that
right?
is correct.
And
Exactly.
there is something for each one of them. And for me, I pick the ones that I feel works for me. For example, when Manoj ji said about, you do something and that becomes a habit and that becomes a character, right? So that is something that Swami always talks about. So that is something that I have taken out of this
Right.
whole thing. So I think we all need to just do is take the ones that we can apply, and probably there are some other people who are way ahead of us and they can do, more than that.
Actually, I wasn't going to say anything. And then Soumya said, say something, but I was just going to keep
No,
quiet.
that is fine. That is, no.
I won't say anything anymore.
No,
Okay,
no,
Saira.
you should ask Sabita.
Saira,
Yeah, that is how we all learned, right? That is how we all learned. That is nothing wrong in asking. I
Sa-
can just say mind is like we are thinking, intellect, we decide what to do, right or wrong. That way we can keep it simple that way. No, that's all, right? Mind accumulate all the information. Intellect, we decide in every day how to do, what to do. That
Yeah.
is the intellect.
Saira, you had a second question there, so I would like to address that a little bit. What leads to our thought and action? So just look at it this way. Our mind, when it is very calm, is like an ocean. It's deep, deep ocean. So everything is calm. And then a wave comes and disturbs the whole thing. So our mind can be now considered as that ocean which is very calm. And then some external thing comes along. They call it vritti, in Sanskrit. So that comes and it's like throwing a pebble. Suddenly, some external stimuli comes and then hits that thing, and then it is disturbed. That disturbance is what is thought. And then you go into the thought, and then you dwell on it, okay? And the thought, starts increasing in amplitude. And then suddenly it starts telling, okay, the rest of the, weapons that we have, hand, and leg, everything, do something about it. and that is where the action comes. So then the other part is, these are all happening in the mind. Then intellect says whether you should pursue it or not pursue it. Is it good for you? It is not good for you. It is discriminating on whether that action should be taken or not. So I think that is also an important
Thank you.
part.
Yes, see,
Thank you.
when at home we'll go, if you think of whatever we talked about, different things. You may say, is it the intellect or is the mind? Which one is working here? You've learned a lot from that. At least you can see the difference. Yeah, is the mind working or is the intellect working? That's opening the mind, or opening this mind to all these thoughts around here. And we can use it or don't use it. It's all right. But tomorrow you will ask yourself, was it the intellect or was it the mind? What should I do? What is wrong? You have heard everybody, it's worked, I feel.
That what Shobhaji started with the five kosha. Shobhaji, can you repeat that koshas, five koshas, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Annamaya kosha,
Yes.
pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, gnanamaya kosha, anandamaya kosha. Vijnanamaya.
So that is the guide. What is directly connected to the senses is that manomaya kosh. So
Yeah.
man is the outer one. कुछ देखा मन भागा, कुछ खाने का देखा, कुछ और सुंदर चीज देखी, मन भागा. मन is वो मन है. That is man which you are asking. That is man. Man is that we're talking about the mind here. वो man is directly connected to the senses. Directly connected to the senses. I mean, not the, maybe we are getting late on that. The platform where the Krishna explains in Gita, those five senses are directly connected to the man first. And then comes the buddhi, intellect, the intellect, who will decide, is the man going in the right direction or not? Should I do this or not? So that is the inner kosha. That is the inner kosha who will guide the outer koshas.
Yeah. So again, we're going back to the sheets. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are all things that can help us. And the most interesting thing that I find, just for perspective's sake, is that this gives my mind something else to think about. It doesn't go back into the routine thought. It gives me one more thing that I can think about. And then with that changes my search history, with that change, because everything is smart these days. And then what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing goes up a level more than what I came in for this as of today or yesterday. So those are things that I think we can definitely put our mind to, and it might help. So now that we talked about training the intellect, how do the mind and intellect benefit from a guru? It was my thought. It was my actual question for last week, actually. How does a guru impact our mind and intellect? Having a guru.
Swami simplifies things. That's my guru. But so he makes things like the thought for the day, things like that. He simplifies what can be very complicated. Like, when we read the Gita Vahini, right? It made one who is not as whatever intellectual as others, understand. Anybody can read the Bhagavad Gita because it's, it's language that we can understand, but not really. So he just simplified it.
Yeah, guru, we may not have a personal guru, or like in those days, go to the ashram and learn. But anybody can be a guru when you learn something, and that will broaden your mind. And like teachers explain in classroom, or we can read through scriptures or the messages. Sabita was saying Sai Baba's messages are, simple and easy to understand. So that way the mind and the intellect we benefit. Intellect benefit because we think about it, we assimilate it and see what we understand, what we can do from it. That way we all benefit. Krishna says mind can be your enemy or your best friend.
Yeah.
The way how we use it.
So I do want to make a distinction here between a teacher and a guru. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. See, the teacher is somebody who has read something and spit it out. Okay, and explains it. A guru is somebody who has practiced what he has read. And so that is very important. It comes from experience, and that knowledge is not just a book knowledge. That's why we benefit from a guru, because all the books are really what we can learn, right? I mean, they are not guru by itself, because you're listening to somebody. We believe in Swami because he walks the talk.
Yeah, thank you, Shankaranji. That was a good point, which I like. So I may put it this way: teacher trains what we are calling intellect. Teacher trains the buddhi. Guru trains the manas or mind. Right, sir?
Yep, that's, yeah.
No, I wanted to say the same thing
Yeah.
that Shankaran said. The choice of guru is very important. So who we pick? So to
Choice of guru. Okay, you go ahead. There is some objection here.
No object.
What thing? You go ahead.
So Guruji is telling us to do few things. So what is left beyond it then? Guruji has done the kripa. Guruji has been merciful. Then what is the delay?
Practice is the delay.
So exactly, Guruji is pouring all the time. So what is the delay? Guruji is excellent. Guruji is great. Guruji is beyond God. So what is the delay? So delay is in us.
Yeah.
सेल्फ कृपा, अपनी कृपा ही नहीं हुई,
Yeah.
अपनी कृपा ही नहीं हुई, सबकी कृपा हो गई, भगवान की कृपा हो गई, गुरुजी ने तो वर्षा कर दी. Guruji is pouring
Yeah,
every minute.
agreed.
The only problem is up here. We are not following what he is saying. So
Yeah.
many teachers, so many gurus, so many Bhagwanjis have come and gone. They have been saying the same thing repeatedly. We are the one who has to finally agree to what he's saying and practice it. So practice is the key.
Practice is the key. Yes, absolutely. But so just to say this, because we had talked about it in detail in Gita Vahini on the importance of choosing the right guru. It is not anyone who is a guru. Importance of choosing the right, it was an entire topic that we talked about in detail. If I'm not mistaken. Was it? I remember it because
see that's what I meant. I mean, I don't know why
Saying something.
the choice of the guru, meaning we have to choose the right person or entity. I won't even say person. It need not be a person also. It can be a guru, can be an entity which gives us the jnana. That jnana can come, but then that should be relevant to our level, our spiritual level. So it need not be the same for everybody. So the guru knows the level of the sishya or the person, and then imparts that knowledge. So that is what is relevant. So that's why Swami says, when Swami talks to somebody, we cannot take that literally and then I say, oh, Swami said that to that person, so I should do the same thing. It's not that. Don't do that. So it is for that person.
See, in Paramahamsa Yogananda spoke autobiography, he says that you don't choose the guru. He comes
Exactly.
and
I was
guides you
about
up.
to say that.
Yeah. And also in my life also, I did not choose. I mean, I know that things happened such a way that he came and he took. So that is why.
Yeah, no, that is true. That choice, the guru comes to us.
Right.
But it's also, I mean, when these days, when you see hundreds of entities as gurus, we have to be very careful as to not accept, I won't say accept, not believe in everybody as a guru. So that's what I meant.
See, I think when the Sishya is ready, the Guru will show up, right? Isn't it?
also,
So we are kind of ready at that moment. All of us at different stages, we got into some kind of a reading, Guru, some teachings and all. even though it is in front of us all the time, we entered at different levels, right? So that is one point. Guru has to have some qualifications like Sravapriyananda talks about Guru coming from the lineage of, like from Adi Shankara and all those, and then somebody in that, like a different branches are there. So the Guru has to have some lineage, and he has to have the knowledge in what he is teaching the students. He cannot be teaching something and then doing something else opposite of. There are so many fake gurus out there. That's one thing. And then the student, he should know where the student is. Like you said, at that level, he has to come down. He cannot teach in a very high level. He has to know. And then for most of all, it says, when the guru is pointing to something, you don't look at the finger, but you see where he is pointing to. That is where we have to use our buddhi.
So, not to be controversial, but there's also, we're talking about gurus in certain, it is true in some context. If you take Ekalavya, he chose the guru, Dronacharya. Dronacharya actually didn't, he said, I'm not your guru.
Correct.
But he
Yeah.
didn't listen. He said, you are my guru, and he kept him as a guru. If you take Dattatreya, he took nature as a guru. He had many gurus, he said.
Yeah.
So there's many, many ways to look at it, not just one way.
So those gurus are the teachers. Let me correct it here. The Dronacharya was the teacher, not the guru, the spiritual guru. Let's clear about it. That was the teacher, not the guru. That's the difference what Venkatji was saying. And when we pray to God, what is the best kripa Ishwar can do to us? Can anyone say?
Guru is
Guru
the
se
one,
milwana. Ishwar, Bhagwan ye de do, Bhagwan wo de do. I have my whole shopping list in front of you. Give me what is the best kripa Guru will do or Bhagwan ji, Ishwar will do. As Umaji mentioned, Guru se milwa denge. When you are ready, wo milwa denge. Automatically, he will make it happen. So,
see, Guru is the one that takes you to God. Real Guru is the one who will take you to God. Rest are teachers. Rest are all teachers, but Guru is the one reach you to God.
Also, I want to mention, CM, and one of the enlightened persons, and then Sujata's father was another person. Yogananda is the third. They all have reached that. They all talk about, they are in search of a guru, and I want to highlight that point that the guru finds you. So they go and somehow, they don't get that chemistry, that vibe. So this is going to be the person, who is going to be my guru. And finally, they all go to their guru. He says, I'm waiting for you.
Yeah.
As soon as they walk in, they say, yeah, I have been waiting for you. So then they know at that point that is the one, so that chemistry works. So I think for us, that's how it happened with Swami, right? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, we are at time. And I'll just go in. I haven't changed the life application. Again, we are still in the bringing our awareness to the moment. Watch as our thoughts come and go. I don't know if anyone else is interested in the meditation that we shared. I can share it on our WhatsApp group today. All right, with that, we can end with Om and Three Shantis. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sai Ram, thank you all for participating today.